Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening in this Wealthy Trustee webinar. So tonight, you guys are going to be learning about how to establish a trust entity, okay? I'm super excited that you guys decided to join me.
You might.
All right, there we go. Yes, perfect. Okay, I'm not on mute anymore. Perfect. So I said hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening in the Wealthy Trustee webinar. So we are going to be learning how to establish a trust entity. So we are going to dive right in. Let's see here. Perfect. All right. So this is the Wealthy Trustee webinar. You are going to learn the right way to build wealth. I am Christina Ivette. I'm your instructor for tonight. So I am going to, like I said, be teaching you guys how to establish a trust. Okay. I am a trust strategist. I've been a trustee since 2015 when I got into real estate. So originally I was a registered nurse. And I, saved up $25,000 and started a real estate investment company and bought a 2-bedroom house. And so I had a mentor at that time, and my mentor told me that I needed to actually purchase this property with a trust. So that's exactly what I did. I purchased a property with a trust because I was young. I was 25 years old, and I did not want to risk getting sued just because a contractor injured themselves on the job. So I knew I had to protect my growing wealth. And so I established a trust at that time, and I've been operating trust since 2015, been a trustee since 2015. I've helped hundreds of people set up and run and operate their trust, okay? So we are going to continue. I have a disclaimer here. It says, this is not legal advice or tax advice. So I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant, okay? I am a trustee that has been operating a trust since 2015, okay? So the objective for tonight is we're going to learn what is a trust, the contributors involved, how to operate a trust, some tax strategies, some wealth building strategies, and how to protect your asset protection, okay? So how do these companies pay no taxes, right? We have the Trump organization, we have Berkshire Hathaway, we have Amazon, right? And we have heard Trump say that he doesn't pay his taxes because he's smart. We've heard what's this guy's name? Warren Buffett. We heard Warren Buffett say that he pays less taxes than his secretary. So how is it that billion-dollar companies like these companies pay little to no taxes? And that is because of their structure, okay? So they are structured the right way to where they have incorporated trust within their structure, okay? So that is exactly what you guys need to do. You need to get structured the right way so that you can also pay little to no taxes, okay? So I have a $1 bill here from the United States. So my question is, do you see the word trust? So somebody can come off of mute and they can tell me if they see the word trust.
Right in the middle of the E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it says, in God we trust. So a lot of people just think that that's a statement, but in actuality, it is the name of the trust that the United States of America Corporation uses, okay? So the U.S. is a corporation, it's a business, it has a president, has a vice president, just like any corporation would, okay? And they operate within trust. So in God we is just one of the many trusts that they have. Another thing is that if you were born in the United States, or if you were ever issued a birth certificate or a social security number or card, they have also set up a trust for you. It's called the Sister Cuvée Trust. And so that is actually your contract. So that birth certificate is your contract, or that Social Security certificate is your contract, okay? And so they have actually set up that trust, and they funded it with an insurance policy. So if the United States of America is operating within trust, right, within a trust contract, and within insurance, you should also be doing the same thing, operating within trust and having insurance, okay? So let's move on. So what is a trust entity, right? So a trust entity is a living, breathing entity just like you. So with a trust entity, like I said, it's a living, breathing entity, so it can do anything that a human can do. So if you can buy a car, a trust can buy a car. If you could take out a mortgage, a trust can take out a mortgage. If you can build credit, a trust can build credit. If you could write a book, a trust can write a book. So there's no restrictions on what a trust can and cannot do, okay? Anything you can do, a trust can do, which is amazing. So when we are actually setting up a trust, you have to understand that a trust is a contract, okay? It's a contract. It falls under contract law, and it is a contract just like any other types of agreements, okay? There are several different parts involved when you are setting up a trust. So one is the declaration. So the declaration is the first part of the trust where you are declaring what it is and what it is not. So you're declaring that it is a trust, and you're declaring that it is not an LLC or a corporation or any other type of statutory entity, okay? So with a trust, there are several different parties involved, which we'll go through that now. So who are the parties involved? You have the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust. So that is the person who's actually establishing the trust, okay? Another name for grantor that you might hear is settlor or trustor, okay? And so just know, like I said, that's the person who's actually creating the trust, okay? And that is the person who is going to appoint a trustee and who's going to create the trust for beneficiaries, and they are the initial donor of the trust. So when you establish a trust, you have to actually, you have to put something of value to the trust. It's called a consideration, okay? And so the trust has a body, and you have to add value to that body. And generally, that is the grantor's duty. That's what they do, okay? So the next party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust. So they are the person who actually operates the trust on a day-to-day basis. They're the persons who control the assets of the trust, meaning that you either purchasing assets or liquidating assets, and they are what we call the fiduciary. So that means that they are the individuals who are the fiduciary operating the trust legally and lawfully for someone else, which is the beneficiary, okay? So the trustee has all the power and all the control and all the discretion to do what they want or need to do in order to benefit the trust and in order to continue and do what's in the best interest of the trust, okay? The next party is the beneficiary. That is the inheritor of the trust. So that is the person who is actually, one, going to receive distributions from the trust either on a monthly, on a quarterly or an annual basis. That's one. Two, when the trust is terminated, then they are the individuals that are going to receive all the assets from the trust. And then three, their main duty is that, one, they need to know the contents of the trust. So they have to get a copy of the trust and study the trust to understand how the trust is to be operated on their best interest, okay? And they need to also understand what the trustee powers are, because the trustee is their fiduciary, okay? So that is another thing. And so with the trust, right, you have two very important dates. You have the establishment date, which can be considered the birthday of the trust. It depends on the type of paperwork that you are filling out sometimes for the trust. And then you have the termination date, which is when the trust is due to expire, right? And that's the death date of the trust, okay? So let's just say that you're operating your trust and you establish it today, August 24th, 2023, right? Then we know that it's going to expire on August 24th, 2123, if we're going to operate it for 100 years, right? And so once that time period comes, you can either renew the trust for another 100 years, or it's going to expire. If it expires, all of the assets inside of the trust go to the beneficiaries. So if you have multiple, then it needs to be dispersed by the trustee equally, okay? And so that's what I mean by the beneficiaries being the inheritor or the people to receive the actual assets, okay? So let's talk about some different types of trusts. You have hundreds of different types of trust, right? And they all fall within certain categories. So let's just dive into these certain categories, okay? So first, you have express versus implied. So an express trust is a written trust. So it's in black and white, it's on paper, it's in an agreement or contract style, okay? And then you have an implied trust, which is an oral trust. So I do not recommend that anybody create an implied oral trust, okay? So then our next categories are simple versus complex. So a simple trust is a trust where it's it's short in nature and it is required to give distributions to the beneficiary. And then you have a complex trust, which is longer in nature. There's more sections and provisions in that type of trust, and it's not required to do distributions for the beneficiaries, okay? Then we have statutory versus non-statutory trust. So with a statutory trust, that is a trust that is created specifically in one state, and it has all of the state statutes and codes inside of that trust. Typically, it's created by an attorney, and so you actually fall under the jurisdiction of that state, and you cannot operate that trust outside of that state. So that is what we call a statutory trust, because you have to abide by the state statutes and you're regulated by that state, okay? And typically it is registered. So it'll be registered either on the Secretary of State or through the county, and it's going to be in the public records, right? So the other one is non-statutory. So a non-statutory trust is where it operates under the common law jurisdiction. And so a lot of our states have a common law system. And so it falls under that jurisdiction where your state was a republic, right? So this is prior to the Constitution, when the country was known as the continental United States, okay? And so with that being said, like I said, it's non-statutory, meaning it doesn't have to abide by the state statutes and codes where you actually get it legalized, or the domicile wherever the trust has its residency, okay? So that's super important because it doesn't have to abide by those state statutes. So it doesn't fall within that jurisdiction, meaning that you can operate a non-statutory trust in all 50 states or anywhere in the country, okay? Which is good because, for example, if you set it up in California, but you want to do business in Florida, you can do business in Florida with that trust entity, okay? So that's beautiful. The next categories are revocable versus irrevocable, okay? And so there's something that we call revocability and irrevocability, right? And that only falls under the grantor. The grantor is the individual who created the trust, okay? And so that individual is the one who has revocability or irrevocability. So every single trust falls within one of these two categories. They're either revocable or irrevocable. So let's talk about revocable. A revocable trust is where the grantor can make changes to the trust. The grantor can terminate the trust. The grantor can change beneficiaries, trustees, and the grantor can also revoke or take back property that they put into the trust, okay? So that is what we call revocable. Irrevocable is where the grantor or the person who is the creator on paper, they are not able to terminate the trust, to remove any trustees or beneficiaries, and if they put property into the trust, they cannot take it back, or they cannot make any changes to the actual trust or the meetings or anything like that. So like I said, that only falls under the grantor, doesn't fall under the trustees. So with that being said, because a trust, if it's revocable, if it were to go to court, because it can be changed by the person who created it, then the judge is, 9 times out of 10 usually pierces through the trust, okay? Just because it can be altered, so it's not seen as a solid trust. And then if the trust is irrevocable, meaning that it can't be changed by the person who created it, that is seen as a more solidified trust. That is what we call a bulletproof trust. And 9 times out of 10, it's not pierced through the legal system or the court system, okay? So if you were to choose a certain type of trust, the best trust to get is an irrevocable trust, because it's going to hold up in court better than any other type of trust, okay? And so if you're going to open up an irrevocable trust, you do not want to be the grantor or the person on paper that established the trust. You want to be the trustee, which is the person who has all the power and control of that type of trust, okay? And so with that being said, if you establish this type of trust, all you have to do is just choose someone to be your grantor. So let's talk about how to create a trust. Number one, you're going to determine what type of trust you want to create. We just spoke about a lot of different types of trust, okay? So you have to determine. So the best type of trust is 1, an express trust that's written. 2, a complex trust, because you have more control and you have more rules and regulations. And for tax purposes as well, when we're talking about distributable net income. Next is a non-statutory trust, meaning it's operating under the common law jurisdiction and you can operate anywhere in the country. And then the last one is an irrevocable trust, meaning that it's going to hold up in court, is bulletproof, and it's not going to be pierced by a judge, okay? So next, after you've determined the type of trust that you want to create, then you're going to determine the trust name, okay? So you can name your trust whatever you want, okay? When you are naming your trust, you do not have to have the word trust in the name of the trust, okay? So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to end with like ABC Trust, okay? It can just be ABC. Which is beautiful, because when you're operating this entity, a lot of people are not going to know that it's a trust, okay? And going back to that point, you don't want people to know that you're operating a trust. So you are not going to name the trust after yourself, okay? That is going to be a dead giveaway, because we are actually setting up this trust, 1, to conceal our identity. We want obscurity. We don't want people to know, that we, have all these assets in this trust. And so with that being said, you don't want to name it after yourself, okay? So typically people will use initials, or they'll use certain names. So for example, if you're naming a business trust, you can use abbreviations like LLC, Co, Company, Corp, or any of those things, right? If you're like naming like a family trust, you can use the word family, legacy, dynasty, all of those types of names. But typically the best way to name it is either using initials or using something that's not associated with you. So it could be something totally random, like, golden goose, right? Something crazy like that, that is not going to come back to you. After you've determined the name of your trust, then you want to appoint the grantor, right? Because we want the best type of trust, which is an irrevocable trust, but we don't want to have irrevocability. So we're not going to appoint ourselves as a grantor. We're going to appoint someone else to be our grantor. So who can be your grantor? That can actually be anyone who is 18 years or older who can actually notarize the trust with you. So meaning that can be your a next of kin, right? So it could be a sibling, it could be a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, a coworker, a random person, whoever. They can be your grantor. Your grantor in an irrevocable trust has no power and no control. So that's why you don't want to appoint yourself in that position. That's one. And two, with the grantor, like I said, they just have to have the ability to notarize the trust with you. Okay, then you're going to appoint yourself as the trustee because you want to have all the power, all the control. You want to be the one that is operating the assets and stuff. So you're going to appoint yourself as the trustee. You can't serve as both, as a grantor and a trustee with that type of trust. Okay, and then you're going to appoint your beneficiaries. So typically your beneficiaries are going to be your children, right? And or the individuals that you want to inherit your wealth. And sometimes we will appoint other beneficiaries as another trust, right? So for example, if you have like a business trust, then you're going to appoint the beneficiary of your business trust to be your family trust, something like that, which we'll discuss in just a moment. Okay, but with your beneficiaries, either your grantors, trustees, or beneficiaries, one, you can have an unlimited amount, right? An unlimited amount of grantors, trustees, and beneficiaries. And two, you can also use entities in those positions as well. Lastly is your successor trustee. That is the individual who's going to take over after you if you expire, resign, or become incapacitated. You have to understand that your trust is designed to outlive you. I'm going to say that again. Your trust is going to outlive you, especially if you're setting it up for 50 to 100 years. It's going to outlive you. And so you need to be prepared and you need to appoint someone to be your successor. That individual is going to take over after you. So they're going to sit in that position dormant until they're ready to take over, meaning until you resign, and then they will take over, or if you expire, they will take over. Okay, so that is super important for you to appoint a successor. Obviously, that person needs to be of age 18 and older, and they need to actually want to operate a trust. Your successors can also be your children. They can serve as a trustee and a beneficiary. They just cannot be the only beneficiary. So also keep that in mind. Number 3 is create the trust agreement. Like I said, it's a contract, and I'll show it to you at the end of this call. So it is a contract agreement between the grantor and the trustee. Okay, and so you have to actually, customize it to what the needs are for your family or for yourself. Okay, and so once you've created your trust agreement, then you're going to get it notarized. It needs to be notarized in order to be legalized and for you to operate it. And so it needs to be signed by the grantor and the trustee in front of a notary. Once it is notarized, you can start operating it immediately. Okay, which is beautiful. And so let's just talk about what that entails. So the first thing that you want to do when you start operating a trust is you want to open up a trust bank account, okay? Because now you're able to fund the trust, right? Remember I said you cannot establish a trust without adding value to the trust. It's a must, okay? You have to, because a trust has a body, you have to put value to the body. So with that being said, you are going to open up a bank account so that you can receive that consideration. It could be anything of value. It could be as little as $1. or it could be a piece of land, it could be a vehicle, whatever it is that you want to initially put into the trust, okay? So with that being said, you're going to open up that trust bank account. And when you're opening up that trust bank account, there's only two things that you're going to need. You're going to need either EIN or a 98 number, right? Some type of 9-digit number from the government for banking purposes. And then you're going to need a certificate of trust, because you're not going to disclose your trust to anybody. So you're not going to disclose it to the bank. You're not going to disclose it to the dealership. You're not going to disclose it when you're purchasing a house, none of that stuff. And so you are going to be operating with a certificate of trust, which is just a summary showing that the trust actually exists. So it's what we call proof of identification for the trust. So those are the two things that you're going to need when you go to open up this trust bank account, okay? And then you'll do a board meeting where you will just say that the trustee is going to open up a checking account at such and such bank, and you're going to be the authorized signer and receive the debit cards and stuff like that, okay? Board meetings are super important when we are discussing trust, because they are like the backbone of the trust, right? A trust can't operate independently without a trustee. And so the trustee has to have meetings to discuss anything major. So opening up a bank account or closing a bank account is major. So you have to have a meeting about that, okay? So now, let's just say that you funded your trust account with $1,000. That $1,000 belongs to you, right? And so you need to be paid back for that money. So what is going to happen is you are going to do a promissory note. So it is going to be a promissory note between the trust and you, saying that the trust is going to pay you back the $1,000 plus interest within a specific term. Let's just say 6 months, okay? And so you as a trustee, you can borrow funds from the trust tax-free, and you can also lend money to the trust, okay? And you'll just be documenting that with promissory notes. So next is transferring those assets into the trust, which is the most important thing, right? That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're protecting your assets. So you want to put them inside of the trust as soon as possible, okay? So with that being said, let's just say that you have a primary residence, right? And so I don't know if you know this, but you are on the public records. Anybody can see that you own that house, right? Because if you go down to your county's website, right, and you do a property search, they're going to ask you for two things. They're going to ask you for the name of the owner or the address. If you put one of those two pieces of information, then your information is going to show up, right? So if you put the address, then you as the owner is going to show up on the public records as owning that property. You want to protect your identity. So you don't want to be the owner on paper or through the public records for that property. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a quitclaim deed, and you're going to deed over that house from your personal name into the trust. And now your county recorder is going to update the public records to show that the trust owns the property, and you are now protected. Your identity is protected, because let's just say that you ended up in a lawsuit and they wanted to seize your property. They wouldn't be able to seize that property because it's protected with the trust, okay? The trust is a separate individual from you, okay? So that's what it looks like for you to transfer your assets into the trust, which is, like I said, one of the most important things. And then lastly is just operating the trust, right? So what does that look like? That looks like whatever assets that you have. So you have that primary residence, right? So that primary residence, it needs to have, it has financial responsibilities, right? So for example, you have a mortgage, right? So that trust is now responsible for the mortgage, for the utility bills, for the maintenance, for the taxes and everything like that. So it needs to come from the trust bank account, not from your personal bank account, now that the asset is owned by the trust. So that's what it entails when you are operating a trust, okay? All right, so let's talk about asset protection, which is the number one reason why you want to actually utilize a trust, and also because you get 100% privacy, okay? So A trust can protect you from lawsuits, divorces, bankruptcies, heavy taxation, probate, and foreclosure. So we'll just discuss a few of these. So the first one is lawsuits, right? So when it comes to lawsuits, let's just say that you are operating a business, right? Let's just say that you have an LLC. An LLC stands for Limited Liability Company, okay? And so a lot of people think that that you have a full life, that you have no liability, but you have limited liability, meaning that they can't come after you. And so you're operating this business as an LLC, and somebody decides to sue your business, right? So then what happens? Your business goes through litigation, and let's just say that your business cannot fulfill the entire judgment. The judge can decide to pierce the corporate veil. And if the judge pierces the corporate veil, they can go after the owner of that business, right? So if that owner of that business is you, because I don't know if you know this, but LLCs are on the public records, right? You've created it through the Secretary of State. And so all you have to do is go to the Secretary of State, type in the name of the business, and the owner's information is right there for you to see. So that judge decides to pierce the corporate veil, and they're going to go after the owner of the business, right? The authorized member or manager. And so what is going to happen is that judge, they because you're the owner and you have limited liability, they can start garnishing your wages. They can start seizing assets and freezing bank accounts, and you don't want them to do that. So you want to be able to protect yourself, especially in a business, right? And so the way that you can protect yourself is by having that LLC be owned by a trust, a business trust to be exact, because the way that a business trust is designed to act as a holding company to hold other entities, okay? And so now let's just say that you created a business trust. So now what you're going to do is you're going to remove yourself from the public records and you're going to do an amendment with the Secretary of State so that you're no longer the owner or the authorized member of that LLC. And so now what happens is you add the business trust as the owner or the authorized member, and then you submit it with the Secretary of State. They update the public records to show that the business now is owned by the trust, okay? So now fast forward to the lawsuit, right? And let's just say that that LLC is sued and the judgment can't be fulfilled. They're going to go after the owner. And so they pierce the corporate veil and they are going to now go after the trust. So you're protected because you have that first layer of protection, which is the business trust, right? They're not going to go after you personally. They're going to go after the trust. And if you operating that trust as a holding company, then you have minimal to no assets in there. So then what are they going to be left with? Nothing, which is beautiful for you, okay? So you don't want to wait until you get sued in order to protect yourself, okay? So an asset, a business is an asset, okay? So let's talk about divorce. A divorce is actually a lawsuit between two people, typically a husband and wife, okay? And so what happens in this divorce is actually is a transfer of wealth. A lot of people don't know that, right? So with this transfer of wealth, you want to protect yourself. And the way you can protect yourself is by utilizing a trust, okay? I actually have a client who he was married for 10 years, and him and his wife, they bought two properties in 2008 when the real estate market crashed. And so she prohibited him from buying any more real estate, right? And so he actually opened up a trust and he put 5 houses into that trust, right? And so fast forward 10 years later, they're getting a divorce. And the only 2 properties that are included in the divorce is the 2 properties that they had in the beginning of the marriage, because everything that's inside of the trust, meaning all of the assets that he has, all of those houses that he has inside of that trust, cannot be included in the divorce, because the divorce is between 2 natural people, and a trust entity is totally separate and it cannot be pulled into a divorce. So that is how you can protect yourself from a divorce, okay? So keep that in mind. Next is heavy taxation. Let's talk about that. So a lot of us, we are paying a lot in taxes. And then we have several different taxes that we have to pay. A lot of us are even giving away 50-60% of our income, right? And so what you want to do is you want to restructure yourself to where you can reduce your taxes. So one example I love to give is if you're utilizing a ministry trust, right? And a ministry trust, specifically a 508c1a designated trust, with that type of trust, you are exempt from paying federal taxes. So if you decide to operate that type of trust, you never have to pay federal taxes again, which is beautiful. You will also be exempt or qualified to be exempt for sales taxes, property taxes, and state taxes, okay, which is beautiful. So for example, let's just say that you had a property, right? And that property was owned by the ministry trust, then you would just go down to your county and apply for property tax exemption. So you would not have to pay any property taxes for however long that trust owned that property. Okay, so that's beautiful because you're saving thousands of dollars that you can now allocate somewhere else, which is growing your wealth. Okay, another thing is, let's just say that you're a W-2 employee, right? And so because you're a W-2 employee, let's just say that you make $100,000 per year. You're taxed, right? You're taxed on 100% of that gross income. But what you can do is you can actually donate up to 60% of your income. Meaning if you make that 100,000, you can donate up to $60,000 to your ministry trust, and you will only be taxed on $40,000. Meaning you are going to be saving thousands of dollars, right? So instead of being taxed, at 22%, you're going to be taxed at way lower, like let's just say 12, right? So that's just a beautiful thing because you are going to be saving, like I said, on heavy taxation. There's a lot of different taxes. For example, if you utilize a trust in order to transfer your wealth, then you won't be subject to death tax, inheritance tax, or even estate tax. Okay, so you're going to be saving a lot, which means that you can build wealth faster. So let's talk about probate. So with probate, probate is inevitable. Okay, so all of us are going to end up going through probate unless we decide to get our affairs in order. So one thing's for sure is that we're going to transition, okay? And something that I like to ask a lot of people is, if you have a primary residence, let's just say that you have a house in your name right now, how do you expect that house to be transferred from your name to your child's name or your spouse's name? So that's the golden question. Right. And so a lot of people, they never even thought about that. That house is in your personal name. Okay. And so if you expire tomorrow, the only way that that house is going to be transferred to your children's name is by them going through probate, meaning that they're going to court, meaning that is going to take a judge to be able to transfer that house from your name to your child's name. You are doing your family a disservice by having them go through that process. So you want to help them avoid probate at all costs. There's only one way to avoid probate, and that one way is by setting up a trust, right? By actually operating a trust entity and by having your affairs in order, okay? Because if you don't, the state will do it for you. So for example, let's just say that you have a house, a car, 6 figures in the bank, and you got like some student loan debt, some credit card debt, right? And you expire tomorrow. What's going to happen is, because you didn't have a trust, your state is going to issue you an estate. And then that estate is going to go to probate, and it's going to be represented by a probate lawyer. So it's going to go to probate court, and it's going to be represented by the probate lawyer. And all of your assets is going to go inside of that estate that the state created for you, okay? And so that means your house, your car, your money, everything goes in there, right? So the first thing that happens is one all of your debt is going to come out of the estate. So that credit card debt is going to come out of the estate. That student loan debt is going to come out of the estate. Okay, so that's first and foremost. Then the IRS is going to get theirs, because the IRS taxes you when you die. So they're going to tax you a death tax, an inheritance tax, and an estate tax. Okay, so then the probate attorney is going to get his or her money, and the probate court is going to take their court fees. So after all of that is said and done, whatever is left over is what your family gets, right? What they get. So I've seen it to where some families cannot even keep their family house because there's so much debt. Okay, so you don't want to set up your family for that, because you have to understand they just lost you, they're grieving, and now you're dragging them through court because you didn't have your affairs in order. Okay, so a lot of people think that a will is good enough, but it's not. A will end up in probate. Okay, a will is just you listing your desires. It's not an estate, right? A will can't own your house. It can't pass down generational wealth. So everything that's inside of a will, you can put it into a trust. So a will is obsolete. And you want to be put in the position to where you are avoiding probate, okay? So let's move on to the wealth building formula. We have 3 pillars here. We have the structure, credit, and invest. So let's start with structure, right? So this is the best way for you to be structured: having a business trust, a private family trust, and a tax-exempt nonprofit ministry trust, okay? So with the business trust, you can do multiple things with this trust. One, you can establish it and operate a business with it, right? Let's just say you have an e-com business, an Amazon store, a car wash, whatever it is that you want, you can operate it with the business trust. You do not have to go out and establish an LLC or an S corporation or a C corporation. Those are statutory entities, meaning that the state is setting it up for you. So the state is creating that contract for you, and you're giving them jurisdiction to regulate your entity, and they can shut you down at any time, okay? So you can actually create your own business by creating a business trust entity, okay? And you can operate it as normal as long as it's a legal entity, okay? So that's one thing. The second thing you can do is you can actually utilize it as a holding company, right? So the way that a business trust is designed, you can actually utilize it as to hold other entities, okay, which is beautiful. So let's just say that you're already in business, you have an S corp, C corp, LLC. So you want to remove yourself as the officer or the owner or authorized member of those LLCs or those companies, and you want to add the business trust as the officer or authorized member of those companies, okay? And so now the business trust is going to be non-operational, right? So it doesn't have employees and all of this stuff. It's not the one that has a brick and mortar, the one that's actually, doing the car wash and all this stuff. So all the business trust is doing is owning the LLC that is operating, okay? Which is a beautiful process. So now let's just say that LLC made $100,000, right? So that $100,000, typically it's going to go as a Schedule C on your 1041, on your 1040, okay? But what you can do is you can do a K1 distribution, or you can distribute the funds, because it's a pass-through entity, to the authorized member, which is the business trust. So now that $100,000 went to the business trust, and the LLC pays 0 taxes, right? Because all the money went to the owner. So now that $100,000 is in the business trust, what can you do with it, right? You can do your regular deductions, or you can also distribute it to the beneficiary. So the beneficiary of the business trust is going to be your private family trust, okay? So now you've distributed all of it to the private family trust, and the business trust now has a 0% tax liability. So no taxes for the LLC, no taxes for the business trust, right? So now what happens is at the private family level. So this is where you actually have your livelihood, right, for your family. So you're going to do all your expenses here to where you're doing, mortgage, car note, grocery, insurance, all this stuff, right? And so that $100,000, let's just say that you spent 80 of it, you have 20,000 left. And so a trust, because this type of trust is a for-profit, right? The business trust and the private family trust, those are for-profit entities. They are required to pay taxes. They file a 1041 with the IRS, right? And so they're taxed high at like 38%. And so you don't want to pay 38% on that 20,000. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to donate that money. So you're going to donate that 20,000 that you would have had to be taxed on. You're going to donate it to your tax exempt ministry trust, right? So your ministry trust is going to give you a donation receipt, and then it's going to receive that 20,000. Once that 20,000 is there, right? That means that the private family trust, you paid zero in taxes. And so now that it's at the ministry trust is exempt from paying federal taxes. So you're done paying taxes, okay? So now with the ministry trust, right? That 20,000 that you just received, you can do many things with it. One, you can do your philanthropic and your charitable endeavors. And then two, you can also do investments, right? You can invest in crypto, stocks, real estate, whatever it is that you want. And then you can also borrow the funds, right? So if you needed to borrow that 20,000 tax-free, you can do that as well, because you don't pay taxes on loans, okay? So that is a strategy that you can use in order to reduce your taxes, okay? So let's talk about credit, right? One thing that I love is that you can actually build trust corporate credit with your trust. So primarily, I would recommend that you do it with your business trust, okay? And so your business trust can actually create credit or establish credit just like any other business was. So if your LLC has credit or your corporation, it's the same type of credit, right? Where you have a DUNS number, where you have some net 30 accounts, some trade lines, things like that, okay? And so what you want to do is you actually want to establish credit for your trust so that you can leverage that credit, okay? Because then once we are able to establish that credit, we can leverage it to invest, okay? So that's a beautiful process that I'll talk to you about in just a moment. Another thing is that you can qualify for nonprofit grants, right? So you are going to be operating a nonprofit, which is that ministry trust. That is a tax exempt nonprofit. One thing that I wanted to tell you is that you do not have to apply for 501c3 status, okay? You don't have to apply for it. You are mandatorily exempt, right? So that's a mandatory exemption that you don't have to apply for that tax exempt status if you're operating a 501c1a trust, okay? Which is which is good, because with a 501, you have restrictions on freedom of speech, right? You can't talk about politics and stuff like that. Also, your corporate information is scrutinized, because you have to submit your financials, your bookkeepings, your minutes, things like that. And so with a 508, you don't have to do any of those things, which is beautiful, okay? So now let's go back to nonprofit grants, right? You're operating a nonprofit, which is the ministry trust. So guess what? You apply for nonprofit grants, and that will also help you leverage and do whatever it is that you need to do with it, right? So now let's move on to invest. So there are two types of investments that I recommend, right? And those are an index universal life insurance policy and real estate. So let's talk about an IUL policy, right? So with an IUL, that is an insurance policy, and it is supposed to be utilized when you are living, not when you die. A lot of people think that insurance is supposed to be used when they are dead, but no, right? It has a lot of living benefits to it, and you should also be tapping into that, okay? So with an IUL, what you're going to do is you're going to use it in order to pay yourself first, right? Because a lot of us, the way that we are, the way that we operate is we get paid on Friday, and instead of paying ourselves first, we pay ourselves last. Why? Because once we get our paycheck, we already see that the federal government took theirs, that Medicaid took theirs, Social Security already took theirs, 401k withholding already took theirs, right? And we get what's left over, literally. It goes into our checking account. Then we start paying all of our bills. We pay our groceries, our car note, we put gas in the car, kids' tuition, mortgage payment, light bill, all kind of stuff. And whatever is left over is what we save, and we just usually keep it in our checking account, or we'll transfer it to a high yield savings account. And that's it. That's our vicious cycle, right? And so you need to do a mindset shift, right? Shift your mind to putting yourself in the position to where you are paying yourself first. And that this is the way that looks, right? So let's just say that you got $10,000. You just got paid today, $10,000. Instead of you paying all your bills first and only being left over with $2,000 for savings, what you're going to do is you're going to put that entire $10,000 into your IUL policy. So with your policy, there's something called cash value, where you build cash value for this type of policy, right? And so that cash value, because it's an indexed universal policy, it actually mirrors the index, right? So it's not inside of the stock market, but it mirrors it. So whatever the stock market is doing, or specific index, let's just say the S&P 500, then what's going to happen is your insurance company is going to match that. So if the S&P 500 index is doing 9%, then they are going to give you a 9% return on your cash value, which is beautiful, like I said, right? So what you want to do is put yourself in a position to pay yourself first versus last. And so that 10,000, instead of you spending everything and only having two left over to where you can invest, you want to put the entire 10,000 into your insurance policy. And then what you're going to do is that 10,000 is going to sit in your cash value, and it's going to make 9%, and you're going to borrow it back out, right? So you're going to borrow it out immediately, like the same day. Okay. And so what's going to happen is when you are taking out a loan or getting a disbursement from the insurance company, you are actually tapping into their reserves, and you're borrowing the money from them. So your money, your 10,000, is always going to be sitting in your policy making money, right? It's going to be mirroring the market, but you need money in order to pay for groceries and your car note and other stuff. So you're going to borrow out that 10,000. You have to understand that your insurance policy is an asset, 1. 2 is tax-free. 3 is liquid. Okay. Liquid meaning that it's not like a house where you got to wait for it to sell and then you get paid out. It's liquid. Like you have 15 in there, you're going to get 15 out like the next day. Right. So that is what I mean, that what I mean by your insurance policy being an asset, okay, is extremely valuable. So because it's an asset, the insurance company, they're going to look at your cash value, see that you have the money in there, and they're going to issue you the loan, right? And so now they literally do a direct deposit, ACH, and they put the money right back into your account, the 10,000. Now you're able to use it to pay your bills. So you have your 10,000 that's sitting in cash value that's making you 9%. So you've already paid yourself first, and then you borrowed the insurance company's 10,000 to actually pay your bills. Okay. And so that loan doesn't need to be paid back because it's tied to your death benefit. So they take it from your death benefit. It's optional if you do want to pay it back, because then you're just going to be, building up your cash value even quicker. Okay. So that's a good thing. So that is what I mean by you paying yourself first and using your insurance policy as your number one asset, okay? There's a lot of big banks out here that's their number one asset. We have Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, all these big banks. We think that they make their money in insurance, or we think that they make their money in mortgages and credit cards, but is actually in insurance policies, right? They have insurance policies, and that's how they make a lot of their wealth. So if they're in insurance, you also need to be tapped in with insurance, okay? The next one is real estate, right? So this is what we're doing, right? We're creating corporate credit because we want to put the trust in a position to where the trust is actually generating its own money. We don't want to be pouring in our W-2 money into the trust, okay? So we need to put the trust in position to where it can sustain itself by establishing corporate credit and then leveraging that credit to create cash flow, okay? That is what we're going to be doing here. And so back to the corporate credit, let's just say that you got approved for $50,000, right? A credit card, a line of credit, whatever it is. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to strip that line of credit for $50,000. The first place that you're going to put it is inside of your insurance policy. So now that $50,000 is going to be working for you, making, 7 to 9% and returns, right? And compound interest. And then you're going to borrow that $50,000 out, right? And you're going to actually use it as a down payment for real estate, okay? So now you're going to become a real estate investor. And so at that point, when it comes to real estate, you have to understand that your trust can get a mortgage, right? You just have to be able to provide bank statements showing proof of income, and your trust will be able to qualify for a mortgage, right? There's something called a DSLR loan where as long as it's an investment property and as long as the rent can service the debt, then you're able to get this type of loan with your entity, okay? And then with that being said, you can now leverage that line of credit as your down payment for the real estate, right? So now we are actually getting property to where we have leveraged that $50,000 in the insurance, borrowed it back out, put it as down payment for real estate. And now we're getting, let's just say, monthly returns of $4,000 cash flow. That $4,000 is going to be put into the insurance policy, borrowed back out, and then used to pay the mortgage and the line of credit. Okay. So we have two assets now that are actually going to be serving as cash flow or dividends for our trust. Okay, so that is how your trust is going to generate its own income. It's not going to depend on you for income. Okay, so how do we transfer wealth? You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. So that is called stewardship. Okay. So it's stewardship versus ownership. You do not want to be the owner of your assets. A lot of us, we are proud, right? We're so proud to be like first generation, homeowners, and, just telling everyone that we have all these assets, right? But that is not the goal. The goal is not to be the owner of the assets. The goal is to be the controller of the assets, right? You want to put yourself in a position to where you're going to control the assets for, 40, 50 years. Okay. So that is it, right? It's stewardship versus ownership. Okay. So now let's talk about how do we actually transfer the wealth, right? So if you have a trust, your trust has what we call, when you're establishing it, it has trust certificate units. So they're called TCUs or UBIs. The other UBIs stand for units of beneficial interest. So it's just like stock certificates, right? So if you have stock certificates for a corporation, right, you understand that it represents your ownership or you being a stockholder, okay? So that's the same thing with a trust. With a trust, your TCUs represents your ownership or beneficial interest, right? We don't use ownership because a trust entity is a living entity, and so you cannot own a living entity, right? You're a living entity and no one can own you or no one can own me. So it's the same thing with a trust. No one can own a trust. Okay, so it represents beneficial interest. So for example, if you have this house, right, and you expire tomorrow and the house was under a trust, there's no transfer that needs to happen because the trust is already the owner of the property and your children are already the beneficiaries, meaning that they already have beneficial interest in that property, okay? Which is equivalent to ownership, okay? So that's the beautiful thing because there is no transfer that needs to be made. Your kid's not gonna go to probate or anything like that, okay? So now the number of TCUs, typically, when you're establishing a trust, the trust is going to create 100 TCUs. And those TCUs, they cannot be fractionalized, right? And you're going to distribute them to the beneficiaries. So for example, let's just say you have 4 beneficiaries. You wanted them to have an equal number of beneficial interests. So you're going to distribute 25 TCUs per beneficiary. So now that, like I said, is going to represent your beneficial interest. So with that being said, let's just say that you had, $100,000 that needed to be dispersed, right? And so you have these 4 beneficiaries, so it's equivalent to show that $25,000 is going to go to each beneficiary. And the same thing with houses. Let's just say you had 100 houses, right? And so the trust was terminated, the houses needed to be deeded over. So now you know that 25 houses are going to be deeded over to each beneficiary. That's how it's represented, okay? So now let's move on to preservation because that's one of the most vital things, right? We are so focused on, making the $1 million or buying the house that we never even think like one, how are we going to transfer it? But 2, how are we going to preserve our wealth? We see a lot of these famous families that after the second and third generation, the money is gone, right? And so we try to avoid that, right? Because that is what we call spendthrift, where you have these beneficiaries that did not grow, that did not contribute to the wealth, but yet they spent it down to the last dollar. So you want to make sure that you have provisions in place in the trust to where that doesn't happen, okay? And so let's talk about preservation. 1, you are a human asset when it comes to the trust, okay? You are a human resource, you are a human asset. So one thing is for sure is that your trust is going to take out an insurance policy on you and every person attached to the trust, meaning all of the trustees and all of the beneficiaries, okay? Because like I said, you're a human resource to the trust and so are they, okay? So that's a beautiful process. Now, what the trust is going to do is 1 is going to apply for the insurance policy, and you are going to be the insured, and the trust is going to be the owner, the payer, and the beneficiary of that asset, okay? So in the event that you expire, that the trust just took a loss. The trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So what happens is that the death benefit goes to the trust, okay? So when you expire, that death benefit goes straight to the trust and it replenishes the trust, okay? So That is a beautiful thing. Now, when you are actually putting your insurance policy, right, into the trust, and the trust is the owner, the payer, and the beneficiary, you just need to make sure that that trust pays the policy, right? You don't want to be continue to pay the policy under your personal name, okay? So that's one thing. Next is the trust is going to take out an insurance policy on every future beneficiary. So let's just say that your kid had a kid, right? Once that baby is 30 days old, the trust is going to take out an insurance policy. So let's just fast forward, right? That beneficiary now is 18 years old. What's going to happen? They want to buy a car. So typically they're going to go down to the dealership. They're going to take out a loan for $30,000 to purchase their first vehicle, right? And so they're going to get into this loan, paying for like 48 months, paying $500, right? Or what they can do is they can go to the trust and they can borrow the $30,000, right? So they go to the trustee, and the trustee writes them a check for $30,000 and makes them execute a promissory note promising to pay back that $30,000 plus, let's just say 2% interest for 40 months, right? So now, instead of that beneficiary paying $500 to the dealership, they'll be paying, $325 to the trust, right? So now the trust is making revenue plus a little bit of interest on that loan, right? So that is what the process would be, but is absolutely risk-free for the trust because the funds did not come from the trust, right? So let's just say that that beneficiary decided to default on that car loan and they decided to stop paying the trust back. Well, that's okay, because the money actually came from their insurance policy. So what the trustee did was the trustee went to their insurance carrier and borrowed out the $30,000. And then that $30,000 was deposited into the trust bank account. And then the trustee wrote the check for the $30,000 and gave it to the beneficiary. So that money came straight from the beneficiary's life insurance policy, right? And so now that the beneficiary defaulted, it's okay because the money is going to be replenished once that beneficiary expires. The death benefit is going to go to the trust and replenish the trust. So that is what we talk about when we're talking about preservation. That is how you preserve the wealth, by putting an insurance policy on every single human asset associated with the trust. It's extremely powerful. I have 5 policies and I'm on my way to getting my 6th policy. So these are the books that I recommend. What Will the Rockefellers Do? That's a really good book teaching you about trust and teaching you about utilizing insurance policies. The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2, that teaches you about trusteeship and how to operate a trust. Family Wealth teaches you about how to open up a family office and operate it. And the last one is A Complete Book of Trust, teaches you about different types of trust, right? Like I said, there's hundreds of different types of trust. So these are the books that I recommend. All right, so what you want to do is you want to take action, right? Your trust can be the new form of you doing business and making profit. And so it can actually solve a lot of your problems dealing with taxes, dealing with asset protection. So you want to be able to operate it the right way, and you want to treat it like a big business. You don't want to treat it like, something small, because like I said, it's extremely powerful. It can do anything that you can do. So I want to show you a short video of one of the members who actually took action, right, and set up a trust.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. Definitely will recommend you to others.
Perfect. All right. So I do have a program where you get all three trusts, like the ones that we discussed: the business trust, the primary, the private family trust, and the tax exempt nonprofit trust, right? You learn about tax strategies that can actually help you save 60% of your taxes if you're W-2, and you can also reduce your taxes down to 0 if you are, an entrepreneur running a business. You learn how to set up how to set up a trust credit, right? So that you can actually leverage that in order to acquire assets. You learn how to transfer your assets into the trust, how to build wealth with your trust, how to do infinite banking. You get a private Facebook community where you can bounce ideas off of and communicate with other trustees that are actually operating the trust just like you. And you also get that generational impact, which is absolutely invaluable. So all of this is valued at $95,000. And what I have to say is let's work together, right? So I have 3 offers for you guys. The first one is do it yourself, where you get the course, right? The course is 42 video modules, which I'll show you in just a minute. And you get the 3 trust templates. So this is where you're working independently and you actually download the templates, you play the video trainings, and you learn how to set up the trust, right? And so in the videos, I go step by step and teach you every single paragraph of the trust. These trusts are not like, they're bulletproof, right? Like the business trust is 51 pages. So I go through all 51 pages so that it's completely thorough and that you understand what you are about to operate, okay? And so, like I said, you get to set up all 3 trusts within your structure, which is beautiful because you want to be able to reduce your taxes. You get lifetime access to the course and the resources. The resources are the tax documents that you're going to need. They are your board meeting minutes that you're going to need, and a lot of other stuff like your promissory notes, a lot of the stuff that I was talking about tonight, okay? And then you get the ebooks. So the books that I just recommended on the previous slide, I have them in ebook version, and they are also included in the program for free. Some of those books are valued at cost over $700 on Amazon, okay? So you get them in the program for free, and then you also get a Facebook community with hundreds of people who are actually going through this same process just like you, where they are setting up a trust and they are operating the right way and protecting their assets and becoming a trustee, okay? So if you want to do it yourself, then it's $997, okay? The second option is done with you, where we do it together, right? And so we do it on a Zoom call, and it's me, you, and a group of other individuals, and we do 5 Zoom calls. So it's actually Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next one is coming up this Monday on the 28th. So we're going to run it from the 28th to September 1st, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Monday, we set up your business trust. On Tuesday, we set up your private family trust. On Wednesday, we set up your ministry trust and help you become an ordained minister. And then Thursday, we apply for your EINs, we do your board meetings, and we help you establish your business credit. And then Friday, we transfer your assets. So if you have a house, we're going to do the quick claim deed. If you have a car, we're going to do the bill of sale. If you have a business, we're going to do the business purchase agreement and amendments, okay? And then we learn about infinite banking. So that is the done with you, where you actually get my assistance. I teach you all of the, information about the trust, and we do all of this stuff together. So you understand that you're actually setting up the trust the right way. You do get lifetime access to the course, the resources, the Facebook group, everything that's done do it yourself. But you get that accountability, which I have found is so vitally important, right? And so if you want to join the workshop, we have one next week, or if you're not able to make next week, then you can do September, October, November. We're already booked out up until next year, okay? So you just let us know what dates work for you, but that's $2,500, okay? And then the last one is do it yourself, where everything's completely private. You don't want to do the group Zoom calls. So it's a private Zoom call between me and yourself or your entire family. Sometimes I do families too. And I'm actually setting up the trust for you. So I'm not just providing you with the templates and then you're typing it in. I'm actually setting up the trust for you. So you get that individualized support. And then you make sure that your trust is, custom. And you get extra support, especially if you have a complex structure to where you have multiple policies or multiple assets like real estate. You need to do 10 quick claim deeds, stuff like that, or you have multiple businesses, stuff like that. Usually you would want to do a one-on-one to make sure that your restructure is done properly. Okay, and then but you still have access to the course, the resources, the ebook, the Facebook group, and then you can also attend the workshops as well. So the private sessions are $7,500. So that is it. You guys can go to thewealthytrustee.com in order to get access to that. And because you guys joined me on this webinar tonight, I actually do have an offer to where I'm giving 20% off if you guys wanted to do the course, the workshop, or the private sessions. So you would just use the discount code TRUST20 in order to get 20% off. And that's for my action takers who are actually going to purchase, tonight from now until midnight PST, okay? So here's my contact information. If you guys have any questions, you can either text or call the community line where you receive the Zoom link for this call. You can go to the website. You can email me at info@7waystowealth.com, and you can visit us on social media, send us a DM, and we'll be able to answer your questions, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to show you the program, and I want to show you what a trust looks like, and then we'll dive into some other stuff. So this is what the actual program looks like. So this is the online portal for the Wealthy Trustee. Like I told you, there's 42 lessons here. So you actually learn the foundation is you actually learning what a trust is, okay? So on all of these videos, you're learning what is a trust, the different parties involved with a trust, the benefits of a trust and different types of trust. And then the second one, you're learning about the 508 tax exempt trust. So we go through the declarations, the articles, the bylaws. You learn how to do your EIN application. And then we do the private family trust, where you're going through all of that stuff in your EIN application. And then we go through the unincorporated business trust. Then we go through tax strategies so that you can actually learn how to, one, operate a tax exempt entity, and two, how to reduce your taxes. Like I said, if you're an employee, or if you're a 1099 independent contractor, or if you are running a business, right? So we do explain those in some of these videos. We show you how to be tax exempt from sales taxes. And then we teach you about distributable net income and stuff. And then we go through your assets. So the first thing is for you to take inventory of your assets, for you to know what assets you want to put into the trust and what assets you want to leave out of the trust. Then we teach you how to create a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policy, your business, and how to do board meetings. Okay, that's so vitally important because I see a lot of entrepreneurs that are not doing board meetings. And then we do wealth creation, where one, we teach you how to establish business credit. And then we teach you how to invest it in the market and how to do infinite banking. Okay. And lastly is the resources. So with the resources, we have all of the forms, all of the tax forms that you need. And then we have all of the ebooks that you need. Okay. And then the last thing I want to show you is what a trust looks like. So this is a trust contract. This one here, we have like the title. So name your trust, something that is totally different from you. And then we have the table of contents here. We have the declaration. So we're declaring what it is. And then we have all of our provisions and articles and sections that's going to save us from litigation and protect our assets. And then once we're done customizing this entity, then we're going to legalize it. So we're going to go all the way down to the bottom and get it notarized. It's going to be notarized by the grantor, and it's going to be notarized by the first trustee. And then you notarize in your respective state and county. Then you're going to establish those 100 trust certificate units by adding something of value. Then you're going to distribute those 100 trust certificate units. You're going to put some property or list the properties in your trust. And then lastly, you're going to execute your certificate of trust, which is this is what you're going to bring with you to the bank, to the dealership, to the title company, or anywhere where you're doing business for the trust. So that is all I have for you guys. I am going to hand it over to my partners at AMG so we can dive into some good conversations about infinite banking.
Hey, Christina, what's going on?
What's up? What's up? How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. Hey, everyone. My name is Mondo Grimes. I'm the executive director of AMG and Associates, partners with Christina, Ivette, and 7 Ways to Wealth. And we are going to dive into more about infinite banking. So I'm getting my screen set here to share, and we will have a quick conversation about infinite banking and being your own bank. All right, Christina, give me a thumbs up when you can see my screen.
Yep, it looks great.
All right, perfect. Awesome. All right, infinite banking, being your own bank. I know a lot of you have heard this term. Christina did such a great job introducing the concept and how you leverage infinite banking in your trust. We're going to talk about more specifics regarding infinite banking. But first, let's talk about what banks do. Let's talk about what our banks do. What do they do? How do they operate? Okay. Now, we get our money. You see this little picture over here. We get our money and we put it into the bank. Chase, Wells Fargo, whoever you bank with. Okay. And they typically give us a little interest, right? Up on a savings account, a little bit change, not much, a little bit. But what banks do is they take majority of our money and they put it into what's called BOLI. BOLI is bank-owned life insurance. They take our money and put it into life insurance policies, permanent whole life insurance policies. Now, why do they do that? Because the very product we're about to talk about, they invest in as well. And they put their money in that same policy, an IUL, Index Universal Life Policy, because what they were going to do is generate 500 to 600% returns on our money. Let me just let that sit for a second. Okay. Now, all this money they've generated off of us sitting our money in their institution, they leverage said money, partnerships, big buildings to purchase. No wonder why you see just about every big city or stadiums, you see all over big buildings and stadiums and all types of different things with the bank name at the top of the building, big salaries, corporate jets, you name it. And then they take more of that money to leverage and create credit card loans, business loans, mortgages. And what do? Market it right back to the people that started the party, us. That's what they do. Okay. And we'll get more into that shortly regarding what banks do this. But this is how banks make their money right here. You put it into the bank, they put into BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. They get 500 to 600% return on your money. They have partnerships, big buildings, big salaries. They turn around, create products, credit cards, business loans, mortgages, and loan you the money that you gave to them. All right. So let's talk about infinite banking now. What's the other side of it? How can we leverage the similar concept? Well, infinite banking is a personal finance strategy that leverages a permanent life insurance policy as a personal bank, no different than BOLI. Okay. Now, E.F. Hutton, with the tax code 7702 with the IRS, he's credited as the brainchild of these benefits. Okay. To create US IUL policies, leveraging the tax code 7702. Now we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But what this policy does and what he created was tax-free cash cows. Okay, tax-free. tax-free benefits. We're going to get more into that in a minute. And the idea of it is leveraging this policy to where you get the least amount of insurance and the most amount of cash out of it. Okay. The least amount of insurance that the IRS will allow based upon tax code 7702 to get the most cash benefit out of it. Okay. To Christina's point earlier, she said life insurance is supposed to be used during your life. And this policy is designed for that. Okay. This is about using it during your life. Now, infinite banking benefits quickly, liquidity, no credit check or financial statement required when you need to get your money out of it with the infinite banking, taking loans against your policy. Simple electronic forms. It doesn't take forever. Electronic forms, submit it, back and forth, communicate with the company, you're good to go. No repayment terms required. You're not required to repay the loans. We'll talk about the strategy with that. And Christina mentioned that the death benefit is the collateral, okay? The funds are sent through ETF, ACH, and given to you by a check, even within 2 business days. So you can get access to it. That's one of the questions I get a lot. Well, how quick can I get my money if I put it in there? Within 2 business days, okay? This is massive. Uninterrupted compounding interest. Uninterrupted. Your principal will never decrease, ever. Your principal will never decrease, okay? Even when there's a downturn in the market. Now, more benefits, it keeps going. So typically, when you take out, you cash out your 401k or Roths and different other financial products, there's penalties, there's taxes, different things like that, as we know. Okay, but with this particular type of a plan, it is tax and penalty free. No capital gains tax, no taxes on withdrawals and loans. And you can actually design it to where it would pay you a 100% tax-free retirement. Okay. Now, the expected rate of return, because people ask, well, what's the return on it? Well, the expected rate of return, a client can average between 6.54 and 10.4%. Now, we've seen upwards of 11, 12, 13% even. Okay. And it also hedges your money against inflation, which is huge. Okay. Massive. As we know, we get older, the years go on, things aren't getting cheaper. So think about upping your retirement years, okay, and planning for the future. You want to make sure that this compounding growth is definitely beating the rate of inflation. And just as important, there's no reporting to the IRS. Now, here's what's interesting. A lot of people say, well, how come I haven't heard of this type of policy and these benefits? Well, there's one massive reason. The government has put a chokehold on insurance companies marketing this type of a product. And I'm sure you can see the reason right here, what I'm circling. Because this product, you don't pay taxes on it. But you do see all other types of policies out there in the market that are taxable. Okay. So there's a lot of restrictions around what companies can do to market these policies. Here's a few more benefits that keeps going. Safe, positive leverage. Okay. Uninterrupted compounding interest, as we mentioned, it yields 5 to 6 more times than a CD. It's the safest investment vehicle by far, without question. And I'm gonna show you proof in a second. So being your own bank then, with all this information, how do you do it? What does this even look like? Well, here's the foundation of BYOB, being your own bank. So you have money right here in your trust. Okay, so your business trust is making money. Okay, you want to take the funds, every dollar you make, whether it be from your paycheck, whether it be a birthday gift, whether it be a love offering you got at church, or shoebox money. It doesn't matter what you receive. You want to put every penny, bypass the bank, but as far as setting it there and leaving it, you want to put it here, just like what the banks do. Put it in your life insurance policy. Okay. Because what it does for you, just like the banks, on an uninterrupted compounding growth, you can leverage it over here. The cash value is tax-free. You can use it as income replacement, and even leverage private banking, as Christina was mentioning, with the child who turned 18 years old, is going to buy a car for 30 grand. You could become a private bank for you, for your family members, or whomever the trust would like to leverage that privilege to. And then there's also death benefit, obviously, because it's life insurance policy has both sides, death benefit and also living benefits as well. As we're talking about IUL, you can leverage the cash value. And then there's also the collateral of the death benefit. Okay. This is the cycle. You get paid, put it in your policy, get that compounding growth, leverage the cash value for any one of these things right here, tax-free, leverage, replacement, income replacement, private banking, whatever. And you have the death benefit over here, your collateral. And then when you pass, the money goes right back into trust. This is the cycle right here. That's it. Infinite banking. Just round and round and round. Okay. Let me give you a couple of examples real quick, 3 quick examples of what this plan looks like. These are fictitious characters, but I want to make it up so you can see how it can work out. Now, this is Sally Sue Smith, little baby girl. She's 2 years old. Okay, 2 years old. And I want you to see over here where my arrow is, the family, mom or dad, they're paying $500 a month. Okay, that's what they decide to pay for this child on their policy. The trust has taken out this policy on Sally Sue. The trust is the payer of this policy, and the trust is the beneficiary. Now over here, you can see, I want you to see the death benefit in this right column. All right, we do what's called increasing death benefit because we want most of your money going to the cash value account, which is right here. Okay, so you can see now this is not infinite banking being leveraged yet. This is just the flat foundation of the policy. This is it. You just bought it, and this is what's going to happen. First year, cash value is 4,800, 10,000 a second, 15, 21, and on, as you can see. Now, within the first year, what's going to happen is you're going to put every dime you make, like we talked about, pay yourself first, put it into the policy. So at the end of the first year, you're going to have way beyond $4,800 sitting in your policy, which is catching on this illustration 6.54% interest. It goes into the next year, and you put every dime you make into that policy, and on and on and on and on. Now, you're like, well, how do I get my money out? We talked about it earlier. Well, you don't withdraw it from here, okay? You contact the company, as Christina mentioned, and request a loan for the money you just put in. The awesome thing about it, when you put the money here, it grows to $2 because now you can take the same, not the same money, a loan against this money, like she said, and go pay your bills with that money, with the insurance company's money. You're not taking your money out. You're using their money. So you're using their money, right, to pay your bills, do everything. You put your money in, then you get some of their money, and round and round and round, okay? Let me give you another example. This is Mike Smith. He's 30 years old, okay? He's paying $1,000 a month. Death benefit right here, as you can see, when you get older, right? And men are a little bit more expensive just because we're more, higher risk because we're men. But you see right here, benefits starting at $596,000, landing at $720. But his cash value is growing. Now, each year he's putting his paycheck in here. He makes $80,000 a year. He's putting $80,000 in here. So at the end of that first year, he's got $89,709, catching 6.5% interest. Then the next year, you take that $87,009 plus his check from next year, and you can just use your imagination to see how it continues to grow. Okay. Every time he puts the money in here, like we said, you're getting loans against this money right here from the insurance company, and you're not required to pay it back because this column over here is your collateral. Okay. One last example, Michelle Jones, she's 46 years old. Okay, smoker. She is putting a lump sum in. She got an inheritance, little money, put $75,000 in the first year, and then $14,400 from years 2 through 10. Okay, the policy continues, but I wanted to zoom in and show you what this looks like. You see it's increasing here, starting at $985, landing at 1.1, just over that. Her account value for year 1 is at $63,000 and keeps growing. Now, this is without infinite banking. Now she makes $80,000 a year. She's going to put another 80 on top of this. Okay, and take her loans out from the company, like we talked about in the other illustrations. Okay. This is an extremely powerful tool because all of these funds right here in all 3 illustrations, all this is tax-free. Now, if you see this over here, this little column where all these zeros are, we can plan out, say at 60 years old, 65 years old, whatever age you decide. If you want your policy to start paying you an annual salary. So we can set up at a certain year of the policy, you will start receiving annual salaries from the bank of you. Your bank, your policy, being your own bank, you will pay yourself a tax-free salary in your retirement years. That is a powerful tool. That is not the same case with 401ks and a lot of other retirement plans, okay? Where you're going to get taxed on your harvest, okay? And as we know, as we get older, taxes probably will go up. Inflation will definitely go up, right? But our 401ks are still growing at the same rate they've been growing at, okay? So this is a very powerful tool to stay in control. Now, here, who uses these policies? Lots of people we know. Ray Kroc, McDonald's. Walt Disney built the entire Walt Disney franchise in the beginning off of these policies, cash value, and doing infinite banking. John McCain, when he ran against Obama, his entire campaign was funded by index universal life policies. J.C. Penney was started with these types of policies. President Biden's campaign was paid for with these types of policies. Most successful real estate investors leverage index universal life policies and infinite banking for their real estate business. Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Chase. These companies, there's an article, Christina, I need to share with you that I read recently. It is phenomenal. The billions and billions of dollars that these particular banks right here have in BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. It is pretty phenomenal to see, okay? Now, here's our team, the AMG and Associates. Over to the left, we have Bob Shingley. He's our wealth management specialist, over 38 years in the industry. We have Jonathan Shaw. He's our executive vice president and partner. To the right, we have Charles Frazier, who is a former IRS officer and now a tax attorney practicing out of Tennessee. We have AJ Lavender. He's our VP of marketing. So down to the bottom right, we have Rich Birchill. He is a CPA and wealth management tax specialist, certified as well with tax compliance by the IRS. Phenomenal for those who are looking to build businesses, need an accountant to handle taxes, all those kinds of things. And then we have Eric Howard over here, one of our advisors. He's a CEO of First Generation Life, okay? Now down here, I'll show you our information. After you have your trust set up and established, this is important. After you have your trust set up and established, whatever program you choose, the first or second or third that Christina presented to you earlier, you schedule our consultation. We will definitely see you on the 5th day of the course. If you buy the Do It With Me, the second one in the middle. Is that the name of it, Christine? The one in the middle, the Do It With Me, correct? All right.
Yeah, done
Yes,
with you.
correct. Done with you, yes. Right, there you go, there you go. So you schedule your consultation, and we will definitely see you on that course as well. My information is right here on the right, and Jonathan on the left, okay? So there's a lot more we can get into, but want to give you a quick overview of what infinite banking is and how to leverage an index universal life policy to become your own bank, become the bank of you. Become the bank of you. I hope you see the power in this product and what you can do for your family. Thank you for listening to what I have to say.
Extremely powerful. Thank you so much, Mondo, for educating everyone and teaching us a little bit about infinite banking and how powerful it is for us to have that as our first asset. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the floor for questions. I do see some questions in the chat, but you can raise your hand. You can come off of mute, and I'm going to go look for some of these questions.
I have a question, Christina.
Go ahead. How are you, Mr.?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right.
Can you help us start from scratch if we have no income? Like build up everything all the way up to the 7,500 where we do the one-on-one.
So you say everything up to the 7,500. So where is it that you want to start? Like, do you want to start with the course, or do you want to start with the group setting? But I help you guys. So if you purchase the course, then you don't get my assistance. You just have to go based off of the videos and the templates that you receive, and then chatting in the community. So on the contrary to that is the group setting, where we are going to be just like how we are right now, on Zoom, but we're actually going to be setting everything up. So it's more hands-on than the course. So, so those prices that you see are the prices that you have to pay for the service, right?
Okay.
So the 2,500 is for the group setting, 7,500 is private one-on-one, and the 997 is for the course. But yes, I do help you guys, and I also teach you, like in the videos, like from scratch, like you setting up the trust from scratch, you setting up your bank account from scratch, you setting up your brokerage account from scratch, you investing into stocks from scratch. So you get a lot of that information.
And what you can like you can help us like with the funding as well, like like getting the business credit cards, stripping the cards, using that money to fund that IUL, then taking the money out to reinvest it in there to make more money. And
Yes. So I teach you how to do all that stuff. You have to understand that everybody's situation is different, right? So a lot of my clients who have actually established corporate credit, some of them, they actually decided to like personal guarantee. I have clients who've gotten 10,000, 25,000, different numbers. And so they, some of them, they personal guaranteed, some of them didn't. So it also depends on your credit. I have some clients who actually want to do credit repair in order for them to be able to leverage their personal credit to get higher lines of credit for their trust. But I teach you, from scratch how to establish your credit, how to get the trade lines. You want at least 5 to 10 trade lines in order to generate the paydex score. And then from there, you can start getting credit cards, Visa, MasterCards, all that stuff. And then, and I'll obviously tell you guys how to strip the card. It's not that hard. So, like it depends on what level you get into the program, right? So if you get in with the course, then you're very limited. But what you can do is if you feel like a lot of people, what they do is they'll start in the course, and if they find that they can't do it themselves independently, then they can upgrade to the done with you, or they can upgrade to the one-on-one. Okay. So you can always start there.
Okay, I got 2 more quick questions because I know I'm going to be, respectful for everybody. Can the trustee and the successor be the same person?
No. So the trustee is the active trustee right now at this time. The successor is the person who's going to take over for the active trustee.
Cool.
So you're the trustee right now. You can't be the successor. It has to be someone who's going to take over for you.
Yeah, it's cool. And the last question was, what's the difference between an EIN and a DUNS number? I can't find that answer. Even I've been researching it. I can't find that answer anywhere. Like, what documentations do you put the EIN on, and what documentations do you put the DUNS number on?
Oh, okay. So, okay, perfect. So an EIN is an employer identification number. You get that number directly from the IRS. Okay. And so that number, you can get it for several different reasons. 1, if you open up an entity. 2, if you need it for banking purposes, or 3, if you sell an entity and it has a new owner. Okay. So with the EIN, typically you're going to get it like if you're dealing with the banks, or if you're purchasing, if you need to fill out a W-9, for a bunch of financial reasons, you would be using that EIN number. Okay. And also when they ask you to build credit, you'll also be using the EIN number. Now let's go to the DUNS number. So the DUNS number is the number that you will get from Dun & Bradstreet, which is a credit bureau. So that's separate from the IRS. So those numbers are, not the same at all. The only thing that they have in common is that they're both 9-digit numbers that will identify your business. Okay. But the DUNS number is specifically for the credit bureau. And so you're only going to be asked for a DUNS number when you're building credit. So a lot of the trade lines, like a lot of these vendors or credit card companies, they will ask you if you're specifically applying as a business, they will ask you for a DUNS number. And some of them require it to the point that you can't submit an application without it. So that's why it's important to have a DUNS number, but those are not the same thing. So an EIN is similar to a social security, and a DUNS number is like, it's like an identification number for Dun & Bradstreet's, like, internal system. It actually ties it's tied to your business credit profile. So that's the major difference. Does that make sense?
Kind of. So you can put a DUNS number on the credit application and an EIN number on a credit application.
Yes, exactly. And they're going to distinguish the difference. They're not going to ask you to put, both numbers on one line. So they're going to specifically ask you for an EIN, and that's when you use that 9-digit number. And then they'll ask you for a DUNS number, and you use that 9-digit number, which are two totally separate different numbers. And you have to apply in two totally separate different places.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for asking those good questions, Mr. Ross.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, perfect. Who's next? I have Cliff. He put in the chat, can the grantor be the same for all three trusts? Yes, you can use the grantor for all three of your trusts. What would your address be on the trust, for the bank or for the home? And thank you so much for everything. So when it comes to you using an address, you don't want to use the same address that you're already associated with. You want to maintain that privacy. And so you want to use either a virtual address or a PO box. And that's specifically for the trust, right? You don't want to use your home address and then people, are coming to your primary residence and they know you're associated with the trust. Okay. So use a different address than one that is not associated with you. Let me see. And then the next question is, are there specific banks that deal with trusts? So a lot of banks deal with trusts. Some banks will ask you for the entire trust. And so you have to let them know that they are violating your privacy, rights. And some banks do not, right? So for example, Truist doesn't ask you for it. TD Bank doesn't ask you for it. Ally Bank doesn't ask you for it. Chase Bank does ask you for it. There's a couple other banks that do ask you for it. So the ones that don't ask you is the ones that I recommend that you go to. Abdul, you have a question? I see your hand up. How are you?
How you doing tonight?
Doing good. How are you?
I can't complain. Nobody gonna listen. No way.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for you regarding like the 401ks. I know that like you and I believe his name is Mondo, like you guys stated, this is a concept that a lot of individuals in our demographic and others as well, they don't know about it, especially like the older individuals who are still investing in 401ks, or they have retired and they're receiving money from 401ks and they have other life insurance policies that aren't the IULs and I guess like the pay you back policies like you guys mentioned. How, if at any way, can you convert, I guess like these older products that maybe like your mom or individuals in your family may have into newer products or into trust that may pay out that sort of benefit or use that to start this particular product? Is that possible?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer and then I'm gonna let Mondo roll with it because I know he deals with 401ks. So this is what I did. I had a 401k. I was a registered nurse with a hospital. I had a 401k. I rolled it over to a Roth IRA, and then from the Roth IRA, I took out the money and I opened up a brokerage account under the trust, and I funded it with the money from the Roth IRA. So you could do rollovers, and then you could also take the money out. But if you want to do a rollover, you can just roll it right over into a brokerage account that's owned by the owned or under the name of the trust. But that's all I have to say about that. And then I'll let Mondo, talk on behalf of your answer.
Sure. So there's There's a couple different plays here. Of course, it depends on the individual. If a person's retired, they're already taking withdrawals from their 401k and receiving retirement funds. We would have to look at that very closely to see, is it even worth messing with? Okay, because you don't want to play with someone's retirement when they're already living in it. Okay, so that's a very delicate situation right there. However, those who are younger in years, who have a 401k and they're not near that retirement age yet, you can look at what they put in it, what's been matched, has it been growing or not? And we have some ways we can consider rolling that over into an IUL policy. We just completed one literally today. So, because it made sense for that family. Okay. Now, there are some cases where it does not make any sense at all. So now, if someone is in their retirement years and they have a 401k and they have other retirement resources, you want to look at just doing a separate IUL, and probably your trust will take something out on your daughter or grandchild or something like that. So there's different approaches, but we're not quick at AMG to start, playing with people's retirement if they're already living in it. We have to look at the whole picture and make the best decision based upon their needs. Does that answer your question, sir, Abdul?
Yes, that does. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, and one last thing is I don't want to take up too much time. One last thing with reference to some of the with reference to the slides that you showed regarding the 3 individual smoker preferred, et cetera. How long does it take on the average to take money out of the policy? Because I've heard it could be 5 years, 8 years, 1 year.
No.
How does that actually work?
Pretty immediate. Like, so 30 days. Like there's some companies at 30 days, some companies are literally within weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's depending on how much you can put in.
Correct.
You said
right. Yeah, correct. Yeah. If your cash value is sitting at 10 grand, you can't take a loan out for 50 grand. Okay, you know what I mean? So yeah. But, exactly.
That makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's pretty immediate, buddy.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Who else we have? Mr. Or Mrs. I'm sorry. Is it Donner?
Downer. How you doing?
Donner. Hi,
doing?
how are you? Did not want to mess up your name, Queen.
Thank you. It's okay. It's Kinata.
Hinata. That's beautiful.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you. It actually means Earth's generosity.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
But my question is mainly for Mondo.
Okay.
I can actually get started with you guys' program in about 2 weeks, so I'll just schedule something around that time. But I actually have a universal life policy.
Okay.
When I first started trying to look into the being your own bank thing, but it just didn't seem as detailed as yours.
Okay.
And so now I'm trying to figure out, like, because you said you could take it out immediately, but I'm not sure if that's the difference between cash value and borrowing against it, because my current policy, they said I couldn't borrow against it until I reach my 2nd year mark. But I want to be able to take your advice and just start putting all my income in the policy and then just paying other things afterwards.
Sure.
Now, would it make more sense, I guess, if we like compare the 2 different policies, to just put everything into yours, the whatever company you're representing?
Sure. Yeah. So let me help you with this. This is a phenomenal question. Okay. And if anyone else is listening, this is your situation. This is for you. One of our main platform here is to educate people. Okay. And so the first step we would do with you, ma'am, is to do a policy review on what you have. Okay. And see how it's structured, call the company and ask certain questions. Okay. We want to know what you have in place. Based upon that intel, we will then decide where we pivot to. Okay. Do we, suggest, make a suggestion for you to continue with this policy? This is how you leverage it. Do you need to get another, et cetera, et cetera? But the first thing, we have to understand where you're at so we can figure out where we're going. Okay. So, so I can't really speak with clarity because I haven't seen the policy, obviously. But we obviously do have carriers that can take care of you, but we want to see which carrier you currently have and make educated decisions. Okay.
Okay. I'm currently with National Life Group,
Okay.
but when we get to that part at the end of the training,
Sure.
I would like to go over my policies with you.
Okay. Sure. Absolutely. We'll make sure that happens for you. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you. I'm trying to
You're
figure out
welcome.
how to put my hand down.
Oh,
But
you're
thank
welcome.
you.
Okay. No worries. You're welcome. No worries.
Thank you for asking that good question. We have Kent. How are you, Kent?
Oh, you're muted, buddy.
Hello, how you doing? How you doing?
How you doing, bud?
Doing good.
Hey, this is a great webinar tonight. I got a question. It's a little conspiracy. I ain't gonna say conspiracy theory. I'll put it out there. Let's just say the banks closed down, shut down. How safe is are we able to access our money through the infinite banking concept?
100% access because it's not connected to a bank.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Think about it. Think about this. Banks, who you're concerned about, put their money where?
And bank on life insurance.
There you go. So what's safer, the bank or where they put their money?
Where they put their money.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question, man.
That is a good question.
That was a great setup too, brother. That was a good set. He's like, nah, I might be. I got you, man.
Yeah, I have actually majority of my money in my policies, so I had to do a loan today too, so I can pull some out. So because I'm doing some home renovations. But that's, you know what, the thing that I love about the difference between a bank and an insurance policy is that insurance policies or carriers or companies, however we want to say it, they have stricter rules than banks.
Mhm.
Right. And so you know that your money is more safe with an insurance inside of your insurance policy than inside of your bank account. So that's I mean, I'm fully aware of that, but if you do your due diligence, you will find out. So let's see here. Who's next? Jerome, you have a question? And then I have some questions in the chat. I see Allison asked a question. Cliff asked a question.
Yeah, this is for my big brother Mondo.
Yay.
Mondo,
What's
is
up?
there any way we can be denied of a policy?
Oh, yes, of course. So what buys insurance is your age and your health, not money.
Okay.
Remember that. When you buy insurance, the underwriters are not looking at your money to qualify you. They're looking at your age and your health, right? Now, here's the beautiful thing about this conversation today, though. Okay. With a trust, remember when you heard Christina say, the trust can take a policy out on all the trustees and anyone attached to the family.
Yeah.
So we have clients who have a trust where the trustee is not able to qualify due to health reasons. However, granddaughter is. We have another where the nephew. We have another where just yesterday, one gentleman, niece, other gentleman's daughter. So there's ways to get an IUL. It may not be on you. So that's one fear a lot of people have. Well, they may have health conditions. I understand people got life going on, but let's identify the healthiest person in your family that we can insure, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That was a good question. All right. Let me see. Abdul, do you have another question or is your hand still up? I could put it down. And then I know Allison had a question. Does the state register notarize or just a regular notary? So you can get any regular notary to notarize your trust. Next question is how to conduct trust meetings. I guess to open up your bank for Navy Federal, the trust minutes. So you are going to conduct board meetings for your trust with any major purchase or anything dealing with assets or anything like that. So if you're going to buy a house, you're going to do a board meeting about it. If you're going to sell a house, you're going to do a board meeting. If you're going to open up a bank account or close a bank account, you're going to do a board meeting. So we actually do it together, but you're asking like how to conduct the meeting. So so the way that it works is you're going to use the template that we provide you with, and you can actually have this meeting anywhere in the world. So if you want it to be, in Hawaii, in your hotel, you could also do that. Okay. And that's all expenses paid from the trust for your meeting. Okay. You can also do it virtually on Zoom and still be in your pajamas, never leave home. So it's however you want to do it. Okay. But you're going to document who attended the meeting. So typically it's the trustees, the beneficiaries, and any officers, right? Usually the officers involved in a trust are like, you have an executive secretary, you have a treasurer, you have a general manager, things like that. Okay. And then, so you're going to document who attended, the date, the time, the location, and then whatever the business item is, right? So if you are opening up a bank account, then that's going to be the business item. And then the different points or the meeting minutes is you discussing what bank you're going to open up the trust bank account with, what type of account you're going to open up, if it's a checking or savings or both, or a money market account, whatever it is, and then who's going to fund the bank account, and then who's going to be the authorized signer, and who's going to receive login information, debit card, ATM, passwords, all this stuff. So we provide you with those templates so that you don't have to figure this out on your own, okay? So thank you for asking that question. The next one is, how do you add property to a trust bank account? So you don't add property to a trust bank account, you add it to the trust. And the way that you add property, and I'm not sure if you mean real estate. I'm assuming you mean real estate, but let me know. Real estate. Okay. Yeah. So the way that you add property, you're going to list your properties inside of the trust in your Schedule B. So you're going to list whatever properties that you're going to put inside of the trust. After you've listed it, then you actually have to do it through the county or the state. So your property is registered through the county and you're registered as the owner. So what you're going to do is you have a deed for your home, and that deed is in your personal name. You're going to do a quit claim deed where there's two parties involved. It's you as the grantor, and you're gifting the property to the trustee. To the trust. Okay. And so once, and all you have to do is you have to sign it and get it notarized, and then you're able to submit it to the county, and then they will what's the word? I'm lost for words right now. Geez.
Amend.
No, that's not the word. Thank you, though. That's not the word. They're going to update. That's what I was trying to say. They're going to update the public records to represent that the trust is now the owner of the actual property. So that's how that works. So you have to use a quit claim deed in order to record the new deed versus the one that you already have. Okay. So let's see if we have any other questions. Let's see. Jerome, do you have another question?
Yeah, just real quick.
All right, go for it.
Now, if it's only two people that are going to be in charge of the operating of the trust, how will I incorporate all the other parties, meaning the officers, so say the trustees is taken care of, but now when you do the minute meetings, you need to list officers and all these other parties. What if you don't have those number of people? What if you only have two people involved?
Yeah, exactly. You don't, those positions are optional, right? Like if you don't have all those board members, to begin with, that's absolutely okay, right? If you don't have a secretary right now, that's okay, but maybe, 10 years into the future, you might have a secretary, right? So, so when it comes to your trust and operating, the trustee is the one who operates. So if you have one trustee or two, that's the people who operate, and they're the individuals who have the fiduciary power to make decisions. So even if you have a secretary or a treasurer, they can't make decisions on if you buy a house or sell sell a house. Okay. So just don't be concerned with, oh, if I, put a secretary in here and now she's able to start liquidating stuff. No, that's not how it goes. So it always falls under the trustee. So for example, if you have a secretary, they're going to do secretarial things, right? Which is they're the ones who's going to be documenting the meetings. They're going to be involved with the record keeping and stuff like that, answering emails, receiving correspondence, things like that, right? And if you don't have a secretary, then guess what? It falls on you, the trustee. So you the secretary too. So that's how it works. Okay. With that.
All right,
Does that make sense?
Because my only concern was, did I need all of these parties to be able to do the minutes or the meeting?
You don't. And
Okay.
and everyone needs to attend either. So if you had, let's just say you have 5 beneficiaries and only 2 can attend the meeting, then that's it. And then you can also determine like how many meetings you want to have per year too. So if you want to only have 1 annual meeting per year, then that's it. You just do 1 meeting.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Who's next? Cliff, how are you?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing?
Oh, wonderful, blessed and highly favored. How are you, sir?
Pretty swell. Thank you.
Right.
2 quick questions. One was, if you have your beneficiary, can a beneficiary be the successor trustee?
Yes, that is perfect for the beneficiary to be the successor trustee. And they could also remain as the beneficiary too, as long as there are other beneficiaries listed on the trust. But yes, they can.
Excellent. Excellent. And my next question was, what would be the first trust to start?
That's a good question. I would tell you to start all 3 of your trusts simultaneously, because you have to understand that there's a lot of setup, involved, which is you actually establishing the contract and then getting it notarized and then opening up bank accounts. You don't want to be running to the bank 3 times versus just doing it 1 time. And you don't want to be, getting in contact with a notary 3 different times when you can just do it 1 time. So do it all simultaneously.
That makes sense. Dweeb alert on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you.
Excuse me.
Yes. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right, and you?
Oh, splendid.
Awesome. I'm not trying to jump in front of anyone, but I'm on my phone and I literally don't see like the hand raising.
Oh, that's fine. No problem.
So
What's your question?
I have 2 questions. So I've been doing some reading, and from my reading, it says like our bills are already prepaid. And so like getting a trust is, like you guys were explaining, we're able to pay our bills through the trust. Is that what we're doing? And I'm asking because I remember you guys saying that we're able to take money out of the trust to pay our bills. So I guess I'm just a little confused on how it will work as far as in the bill payment. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, for instance, right now I'm working a 9 to 5, and of course I'm paying my bills. So once I open my trust, from there I'll be able to put the money that I'm making into my trust account. But with the bills already being prepaid, like you said, the United States is a corporation, which is a business. I guess I'm trying to understand, how am I going to be paying my bills out of the trust without it like coming from me, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so it's 2 different things. Okay, so the trust is actually going to allow you to operate privately. So what you're talking about is some of the benefits that you receive from having a trust already established through the corporation. Okay, and so what you're discussing about our bills being paid is called remittance, right?
Right.
And so with the remittance, what happens is that you receive that, that bill in the mail. It looks like a check, and you're supposed to write, a certain verbiage from the Uniform Commercial Code code in order for them to remit that bill, right? And so that's a totally different process from you, operating with the trust. So from what I know, those benefits are for you personally because it's tied to your personal name or your straw name, and it's tied to the Sister Cuvée trust that was established for you. Okay.
Right.
So that is separate from, so that deals with the trust that was created by the corporation. It's not associated with you actually setting up your own personal private trust. Those are two different trusts. So you doing your remittance is you trying to benefit from the trust that was created, unknowingly for your benefit. That's how you're able to tap into social services, like getting a free education, right? We think that the education is free, but it's not, right? They actually get the money from the Department of Treasury through our trust. It's not free. Just like any of the other social services. So it's the same thing with your bills being paid, but you have to do it a certain kind of way. And I don't teach on that. I know people who do teach on it though. So if you want to message me privately, I could lead you in the right direction, but those are two different trusts. Okay. So you're tapping in with the trust created by the corporation in order to do your remittance. And this is you actually, if you are wanting to create your own trust so that you can operate privately and protect your assets. Because another thing is when you're talking about like the straw man and stuff like that, like the straw man is owned by the corporation, right? We don't really have any ties to it. So you actually having your house or your car or any of that stuff in the straw man's name is dangerous as well. That's why the county could just snatch up your property and auction it off tomorrow.
Right.
So you want it in a trust, and that is a private thing that you're doing that's not associated with the government.
Right. Thank you so much. Because yes, I did just do a lot of recording with the Register of Deeds office for myself in regards to that. So yes, if you could shoot me that information, that'll be awesome because I want to use that trust, but I'm also interested in your program, where I am being able to set up all three of those trusts simultaneously. And be able to, just move as a free person. I'm guessing if I'm saying it correctly. I'm fairly new to it all. So, but I've been doing a lot of research on this like for the past 10 years. And so I've just like really gotten myself in proper status. And the trust is like the last thing that I'm really needing to do. And as you know, it's definitely complicated. So, I'm definitely looking for assistance. And then my second question was, so currently I'm single. I mean, I have a boyfriend, but I'm single and I don't have any children. So when it comes to like beneficiaries and things of that nature, I mean, of course, I'm looking at like my mom, my dad, my two sisters. With that being said, by me gonna grow my family or grow myself, I know we were talking about the irrevocable trust. How would we be able to like add, let's just say next year maybe I want to own a home or maybe I have a child, and by this time I've already created my 3 trusts, but now I need to add my child or add my property.
So you as a trustee, you are able to make amendments to the trust. Okay. So you will amend the beneficiaries and you would just add another beneficiary. You can also redistribute TCUs. So let's just say that you only have one beneficiary and you gave them 100 TCUs, which is everything. And then 2 years later, you added a second beneficiary, you could redistribute the TCUs. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing is you said, what was the second part you said? You said, adding beneficiaries and then adding property?
Yes. Like real estate or like real estate.
Yeah, so I mean, you don't have any restrictions just because it's an irrevocable trust. You're the trustee, so you don't have any restrictions. You can add property whenever you want, and then you can also dispose of or liquidate the property or the assets whenever you want. So you having, property in the near future is not going to prevent you from adding it into the trust. So all you have to do is have a board meeting about it, right? So even though you've established your trust today and you didn't add it as, an asset today, you can go back and amend your list where you have your properties, and then you just have a board meeting saying that you are, closing on this property, you're describing the property, giving the address and all this stuff, and you add it to your records. So you can do, anything. That's a part of the operation of the trust. And that's the way it's designed for you to constantly be evolving the trust estate.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so, so much. And one last question. What email would you prefer for me to email you? Because I would like your contacts information in regards to my sovereign trust before I'm able to open it up with you guys.
Oh, okay. Do you see it in the chat? Like, you see me and my assistant's email on there? So you can just email, if you want to email me directly, is info@, or you can also email my assistant and then she'll be able to forward it to me. So do you see it in the chat, Tiffany?
I believe so. Is it the info@7waystowealth.com?
Yes, ma'am. You can email me there directly, and then I'll provide you with the information that you need. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. This is really, really helpful. And we appreciate you for sharing this within our community, because we do have a lot of young people, or a lot of people nowadays, as they're saying, woke, that's trying to see how we can create that generational wealth within our families, because we all know working a 9-to-5, 40 hours a week is overrated at this point. So once again, like I said, I just really appreciate you for sharing this. And I'll definitely be in contact with you, and you have an awesome week.
You too. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate you being here and getting this information and taking action. You are an absolute blessing. And I appreciate all the kind words this evening. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I look forward to us having some side conversations in the future. Okay.
Yes. Definitely. Thank you. Have a good night.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Who's next? Let's see. Who's next? Ms. Donner.
Yes, I have 2 more questions that
Yes,
popped
ma'am.
up. Now I had heard, because my friend, when I first started hearing about trust, she was telling me something about you make one, when you file your taxes, you can claim credits, and she kept expressing the difference between credits and cash. And basically, like, your trust could file taxes, and I guess you could receive credits based off write-offs. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just trying to see if that is true.
Okay, so one, it depends on the type of trust that you're creating, if it's required to file taxes or not. So majority of the trusts, they file a 1041. And so you would be required to pay taxes, especially if you've generated that income within this nation, in the United States. Okay, so that's first and foremost, and it's a 1041. So you can look it up on the IRS website. And then 2, regarding credits, I've heard of this. I haven't experienced it myself, and I haven't spoke to anybody who received credits. So I'm not sure if it's true. I cannot confirm and I cannot deny. But I did hear something like that, where they would set up, like a special non-interest bearing account and try to qualify for credits. So I think that the best thing for you to do is to do your due diligence to see if it's a real thing or not. But I really don't know. And I've never went for any credits or anything like that. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And also, for Armando, is there a way to direct deposit your funds into life policies and bypass the bank altogether?
No, not that.
No.
No, I'm not going to say no. I have not one client that does that. That depends on the employer, right?
Right.
That is something that none of my clients have done. So I can't say it's not possible because I don't know for sure, but that's the first time I've been asked that question. So I would assume no, but I can, I definitely can look into that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all. I appreciate y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, iPhone, we're not sure what your name is, but you're next.
There's a lot of iPhones on here.
That me?
I don't know, iPhone with their hand up.
Yeah, iPhone with the hand up. Yeah.
All right, yes, this is Joseph Montoya. No,
How are you, Joseph?
I'm doing good, man.
Uh-huh.
Got a little bit busy today and I almost missed the meeting. Anyway, I want to ask real quick. I have a couple questions in the chat, but this one, can we have the straw man trust and trying to do that process and learn that process and accomplish it and do this as well at the same time?
I'm sorry, is that the question?
Yes, can we do both at the same time?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You had broke up in the beginning of the question. You're asking if you
I'm
can
sorry.
set up a trust specifically for the straw man and then simultaneously set up a private trust and operate privately?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do this, operate privately, and then go through that process, learn that, and be a steward of our, skill doing that at the same time.
Yeah, you can do it simultaneously. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Who's next? Jerome, you're next. Am I saying your name right?
Jerron.
Jerron. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course it would be Jerron.
So I got one more question. Now, you said we can remit our bills? I never heard of that.
Okay, well, you need to go on Google and YouTube and all this stuff. That's not something that I educate on. Okay, I only talk about trust, but yes, it is a thing. And so if you YouTube it, you'll see that some people, they actually get their bills paid, and some of them don't have to pay certain bills for life, because you have the right verbiage dealing with the Uniform Commercial Code. So do your due diligence. And like I said, I know someone who educates on that. So if you want to send me an email, I can send you their information where they can teach you how to get your bills paid through that whole remittance process. But yes, it's a thing. It's a thing. That's why like the bills come in the mail and they look like checks. Right. And then they have like a positive number versus a negative number. Right. So it says like $150. And so you think, oh, I owe $150. But if you owed $150, it would show negative $150.
Right.
There you go.
And we could do that under our personal. We don't have to necessarily have a trust to do that.
No, you don't. Exactly. Because it's under your personal. It's tied to your Social Security. So all of that stuff is personal. So yes, it's a whole thing out here. Okay, get your bills paid. Get your
they
bills
got all
paid.
These little twists and turns.
But it's about information though, right? You have to have one, the right information, and two, you have to apply what you learn.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Christina. I'll talk to you later. I'll be emailing you.
Okay? Yeah, email me. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Thank you, Mondo. Also, I appreciate you. May the Lord bless you too.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate that, buddy.
All right, next, Namir Ali. Namir.
Greetings.
Hi.
Yes, Namir. Yes, greetings. How are you?
All right, I did not mess that up. Okay, greetings to you as well. All right.
Yes, so I was wondering, being military, you have like the SGLI, how you pay into it forever. Like that's also like a life insurance. Are we able to do the same, like infinite banking with that also?
What type of policy is it? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I know it's like 200,000. I know that. I know it's like 400. It actually went up to 400 now.
Yeah, I would assume not, but I would need to look at what type of product it is. So Yeah, I would need to look and see, like, look at the policy details, what type of product. So not all insurance you're able to do infinite banking with. There's only, certain products. So which really IULs. I mean, you could do it with a standard whole life to a degree, but like term policies and a lot of other things you can't do it with. But I would need to look at it.
So you actually had to just set up your own, basically.
Well, that's the main thing. Yeah, you definitely want to set up your own. You don't want it owned by another entity outside of your trust or another person. You don't want that.
But I'm saying, like, military is all of it dealing with trust, right? Already.
I would highly suggest, I'm not well informed on those policies, what the military provides, but I would tell you to be in a position of strength for your family, for your trust, you definitely want to get your own.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for Christina, you said that, how about the one with that you walked through with today? You said that's 2,500.
Yeah, that's 2,500. And someone asked in the chat if I have payment plans. Yes, I do. So it's 2,500 if you want to pay in full, or you could do a payment plan, which is, I think is 5 payments of 549, and you could enroll in the payment plan like on the website. So you can either pay in full or do the payment plan for that. And then once you finish with the payment plan, so usually it'll take like 4 or 5 months. Once you're finished, then you're able to attend the workshops and we'll get your trust set up. And then do you have any questions?
But and also and then the one where you don't assist, that's like $1,000.
Yeah, it's $997. And if you
But
want,
it walks you through basically though, right?
it
You
does.
said
Yeah,
modules.
it's very thorough.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very thorough. And so if let's just say that you enroll in the course and then you're going through the whole process, and then midway through you decide, oh, well, you know what, I want to hop on this workshop with Christina, then you can upgrade. So all you would have to do is just pay the difference. So you would pay like that 1,500 difference, and then you'll be able to enroll in the next workshop.
Oh, so that 1,000 would become like a down payment almost on the 2,500.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, you know what I love? Though? I love that y'all not trying to beat people in the head and giving false information and all this stuff. So again, like they said earlier, man, kudos, Ashe. Yes, I can't wait to be a trustee.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank
And
you.
take it
We
back. Look, I can't wait.
appreciate
I can't wait to take it back home and like flood the city with it.
Yes.
I'm an ambassador already, so this is just like, you don't know how you putting these notches on my belt. I'm like, yo.
Yeah, you want to help as many people as you humanly can. That's what I'm doing.
Because I listened to I think I listened to your other webinar where you was breaking down how it's 52 weeks in a month, and people get paid every 4 months, on the rehab, because I help people rehab homes. I haven't really got one on my own to do it. So I told myself, from here on out I ain't working for nobody else.
Yeah.
So this is but when you were saying it, how what was you saying about like every week they have to pay out?
Exactly. Yeah. So that you could recover, right? Because if you're a real estate investor and then you're just traditionally getting, you're renting out monthly, you only getting 12 payments a year, but there's actually 13 months in a year. So you're losing a month. So the way that you recover that month is by renting out weekly instead of monthly. So now you're getting 52 payments versus 12. So you're making more money.
Ain't that like the rule of 72 or something? Aren't y'all teaching that too?
No.
No.
Like, no.
He was thinking
I be
about,
getting all these processes mixed up, man. I'm telling you, I've been on it.
he was thinking about the IRS code 7702. That's what he was thinking about. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Much gratitude again, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Let me see if there's any other questions in the chat. Let's see here. Somebody asked, do you provide financing? So we have the payment plan. Can the 20% off apply once I get paid next Friday? So you can send me a message, but the 20% off is for people who are going to take advantage of the discount tonight, and they want to enroll before midnight PST. Let me see. Someone asked, I understand your property should be owned by the private family trust. What if I have investment properties and owned by the private family trust or owned by the LLC that's owned by the business trust? Yeah, a lot of investors do that. So they leave their properties that are owned in the LLCs, and they just protect it by having the business trust be the holding company. So you still have that layer of protection because the business trust is the holding company for the LLC. That's a strategy, and that'll still it still appears, because it's owned by an entity, is way better than it being owned in your personal name. Okay, so that's a strategy, especially if you're like dealing with like mortgages and all this stuff. Sometimes certain banks, they would want to lend to an LLC because it's registered to the state versus a trust. So that's a strategy that a lot of real estate investors use. Let me see if I have any other questions. Okay, do I have any other questions? I don't think so.
I have a question real quick. If this
Oh,
is
yeah.
Amina.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Amina, how are you?
Fine. I'm already in the thing. I had one quick question. Now I know that you can't be the grantor and a trustee, but I just had a quick question. Can you make like a family member the a grantor first, and then I think they step down or something? Or is that I don't know if I'm asking right. Like if they
Are you asking like who can be the grantor?
Yeah, and I think I was in the video, I forget how you explained it, but I just wanted to ask. I don't know if I'm asking the right way. Like when you first setting up the trust or something, because you said you can't be the grantor and a trustee or something. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah. So with the irrevocable trust, you can only be one party. You can't be both parties. You can't be the grantor and the trustee because the grantor has no power and control and the trustee has power and control. So you can't be both. You have to choose which one. So ideally you want to be the person with the power and control. So you're going to appoint someone to be your grantor, and that person can be anybody as long as they're able to notarize the trust. So if you wanted to be a family member, you can. If you wanted it to be, a coworker or, somebody in your school, whatever the situation is. But that person is going to notarize your trust, and then they walk away from the trust. They don't have access to the trust. They don't have influence over the trust.
Okay.
Over the trust.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's all I needed to know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you so much for everyone who decided to join this webinar tonight. We really appreciate you. And take action on the information that Mondo and I provided tonight. Okay, so go ahead and set up your trust, operate privately, protect your assets, and set up your IUL policies so that you're able to start building wealth the right way so that you can actually change the trajectory of your family, right? You can get rid of generational curses, and now you can raise your kids to be trustees. It's extremely powerful. So you got to be you have to be building generational wealth the right way. Okay. A lot of us, we are just, here, let's get the house, but then we don't know how to protect it. We don't know how to transfer, and we don't know how to preserve it. So we gave you the tools that you need tonight. So like I said, take action on this information. You guys have a blessed evening. Go ahead and visit wealthytrustee.com. We have a workshop coming next week. So you guys can get set up with your trust as early as next week, Monday through Friday. So if you have any questions, text the community line, send me an email. You also have Mondo's information, so book a call. He's a wealth of knowledge and he'll get you on the right track. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.